Hi guys and welcome to Logic Language Learning. So today's video is, and there's going to be two in this sort of upload. So this is targeting a couple of people who I work with, so Ian, John, other people. So it's really targeting people who have pretty much solved the vowel dilemma. That basically means how you are safely pronouncing every vowel. And I will attach underneath a link to the where I basically go through and make sure in the reading rules that you know what you're doing with the vowels. So that's things like U as opposed to U, E as opposed to I, you know, A versus in, am versus im, you know, all the main reading rules in French. So once you've cracked that, okay, and if you watch the videos and you do the live class with me or whatever you're doing and you're learning, which is all wonderful, you will notice that I always try and get people to talk through. I try and get people to link their French in a line. So one of the reasons we do this is a slogan that I've adopted for years, which I really believe in. I think it's really, really important, is speak the French you want to understand. What that means is, it's no good coming and going, oh Luke, I really don't understand when you speak, or when you know, other French people speak, because you speak all joined up, or it's all I don't understand because it's so quick, or I don't understand because of this. I always say you need to aim to do the same thing in your speaking, all right? So what would that mean then? So up until this point, then that's been about joining things up. So for example, if you've got, you know, je suis allé voir mon ami à Paris, rather than je suis allé voir mon ami à Paris. Even if you go slowly, je suis allé voir mon ami à Paris. So the other reason why it's really important to speak how people are going to speak to you, is it's not just about you sounding better in French, although that's great and that's got its own value, obviously. It's so that your ear gets used to how you're going to hear certain things. So if you practice being all joined up in your own speaking, you're going to get you're going to get much further with listening to other people joined up. So what I really wanted to talk about today was another thing that you can really work on in your French if you've kind of got to intermediate or advanced and you are pretty confident with your vowels, okay? And it's something else that's going to really make a difference to A, sounding a bit more authentic, B, sounding a bit more human, and C, something that's going to just really increase your ability to understand the majority of what you're hearing. Okay, so what we're talking about after that long introduction is which words you stress in French when you're speaking, okay? So, one of the things that I always get guys and girls to do when they're working with me is to try and be a little bit more human. So think about what the emotional human message is in what you're saying. Everybody obsesses with vocab when you're learning a foreign language. You just think, if I just learn more vocab, I'll be able to make my point. And you can use your voice and your mood and your tone of voice and the musicality and all the things that make you wonderful and make you, you can still use those in a foreign language. And often when I ask people to do that, they go, oh my gosh, it's just too much extra to think about. But then they realise it actually helps them memorise and learn things because they're learning it in context. So another thing I like to add on at that stage is, like I've just said, what you're going to stress and which words you're going to stress. So some people at this stage prefer to be told what to stress. Other people prefer to be told what not to stress. But let's just talk about both and let's just go through the process, okay? So one of the first things is you're not going to stress an auxiliary. That means have in a verb, so I have spoken, or she has danced, or she had danced, or whatever. So let's just quickly look at English. In English, you don't stress an auxiliary. If you say, you know, he's been to Cyprus, but he's never been to mainland Greece. You say he has been, or even if one of the reasons that the contraction happens, he's been, is because we so just absolutely do not stress he has been, okay? We only stress an auxiliary in English emphatically to make a point. He hasn't been to Cyprus, he has been to Cyprus, okay? He has. Will you be coming? I will. You didn't send the email, I did. And you can't do that in French. Quite simply, that option doesn't exist. If somebody says to you, he's been to Cyprus, and you say he has been, you have to say he has. You have to say the whole thing. Yeah, he's been there. Yeah. So auxiliaries we don't stress. So when you're learning French and you've gotten really good, and you've played the games like j'ai pris, j'avais pris, j'aurais pris, you know, subjunctive que j'ai pris, all this business. The interest academically is on the auxiliary, because that's the thing that you're learning to change. Il est parti versus il était parti versus il sera parti versus il serait parti versus qu'il soit parti. And that's a really interesting thing for you to sort of say, look, I can do this, Luke, can you hear this? And I get a lot of people I teach who go, it's fantastic he's been, c'est fantastique qu'il soit allé, and I'm like, well done, fine, you've got the subjunctive, good for you, well done, big kiss. But it's not what you would naturally stress. Now, is it that it sounds a little bit odd in French if you then do that, if you stress an auxiliary? Yes, but also at speed, don't get used to hearing that stressed in French. No one is going to do that for you. No one in normal spoken French is going to go, alors oui, alors c'est fantastique qu'il soit parti, it's great he left. No one is going to do that. So auxiliaries will not be stressed. Another thing that won't be stressed is we will not stress pronouns. So for example, if I said before sending it, avant de l'envoyer, the stress is on the verb to send. Before doing it, you wouldn't say avant de le faire. You'd say avant de le faire, you'd stress the verb. More on that later. If you've got multiple Motown, I love Motown. If you've got multiple pronouns, you're not going to stress both of them. So for example, if you have le, lui, so I gave it to him, je le lui ai donné, you wouldn't say je le lui ai donné. You know, you wouldn't say that. You'd say alors moi je le lui ai donné, you know, the stress would go on the verb. The main verb, not the auxiliary verb. So again, is it going to make you sound a little bit more human, or in French, a little bit more normal? Is it just going to subconsciously make French speakers, are we just going to think they're better, or you just feel connected to that person speaking? Yes, it probably will. But why is it important to you? Because you need to get into the habit when you work out your sentences for yourself. You know, je le lui ai donné. Then I ask you to join it. Je le lui ai donné. Then I ask you to now, the third stage, say it at the appropriate rhythm. So that means je le lui ai donné. And this, you know, alors moi je le lui ai donné. You know, you wouldn't have any emphasis on le and lui. Something else we don't stress. We don't stress prepositions or relative pronouns. So with whom, the man with whom I work, the company for which, all of that business. I will attach the relative pronouns video underneath because it's always something you guys can go over. We've done plenty of live classes on it. So for example, you wouldn't even in English say the guy with which I work or with whom I work. I mean, obviously in English you would more commonly in modern parlance say the guy I work with, okay? But you wouldn't even say that, the guy I work with, you wouldn't say that. You say the guy I work with is, you know, is telling me, you know. So the same in French, but because you're all terribly proud or you're thinking of the grammar that you've just pulled off, you know, I hear le mec avec qui j'ai travaillé. And I'm like, it's just not organically normal in French, you know. Le mec avec qui j'ai travaillé, il a, you know, again, so I'm not going to pronounce relative pronouns. I'm not going to pronounce prepositions. De, pour. Yeah, you can emphatically use a pronoun, although I've said don't pronounce pronouns, you can use an emphatic pronoun, so like pour moi, pour toi, avec lui, you're going to go with him, that piece of shit. So the point is, but you're not going to go avec lui, pour lui, you're not going to stress that, okay? Now if that in your mind is the sort of thing that you, when you're working through, which preposition am I going to use? Now, prepositions, you know, are an absolute shit parade when you're learning a foreign language. They often swap and change, and so you're very aware when you go, when you drop in a de or an a, you know, even in a phrasal verb. Alors moi je m'occupe de. You wouldn't say that. I'm looking after somebody, you know, je m'occupe de quelqu'un. Yeah, so you would just basically not stress the preposition. So to quickly recap so far, then we're saying we're not stressing the auxiliary verb, we're not stressing prepositions, we're not stressing pronouns. Let's do another one. We don't stress subject pronouns. We might stress a name, so you might say Mark went to Biarritz, but Jacqueline decided to stay at home. Marc, ouais, Marc, il est allé à Biarritz. Jacqueline, elle a décidé de rester à la maison. So you might stress the names, but you wouldn't say he went to Biarritz and she stayed at home. What's he doing? You wouldn't say il est allé. You just wouldn't do that like you would possibly in English. So that one's a little bit different from English. You wouldn't possibly do that. So what can you start stressing then? You can start stressing the main verb. So je l'ai lu, I read it. Je l'ai lu on the read, je l'ai lu. You can start stressing the you can stop stressing a main verb and stress the object, stress the noun, stress what the verb is doing if that main verb has something after it. So if, for example, you said I read it, alors moi je l'ai lu, the stress will go on lu. Even slowly, moi je l'ai lu. I read the book, alors moi j'ai lu le livre. The stress is going to go on livre. What else are you going to stress? If you've got an adjective or an adverb, so something describing the noun or something describing the verb that you're doing. Now, you've got to realise that a lot of adjectives and adverbs have been added to a sentence, and you could kind of take them out. Take them out. So, he ate. Il a mangé. Yeah, the stress on manger. Not il a mangé. He ate well. Now, I didn't need to say he ate well. I'm adding that to give a feeling to the sentence. Ouais, il a bien mangé. The stress goes on bien. He ate very well. So I'm modifying my adverb. Oh, il a très bien mangé. The stress is going to go on the très. Okay? Other adverbs. Pas, plus, jamais. Alors moi, je l'ai jamais mangé, quoi. I've never eaten it. So I ate, j'ai mangé. I haven't eaten, j'ai pas mangé. Or je n'ai pas mangé. So between the ne and the pas will get the stress. Alors moi, j'ai jamais mangé, whatever you're saying. Moi, j'ai jamais touché le gâteau. J'ai jamais mangé le gâteau. Okay? So stress an adverb very happily. Oh putain, il est trop beau. So if we're saying he's handsome, oh, il est beau. He's handsome. Oh, il est trop beau. We're now stressing the adjective, we're then stressing the adverb. If it's kind of joining onto something, so I read something interesting, you might go, well, hang on, interesting is an adjective. Moi, j'ai lu quelque chose d'intéressant. On that one, the feeling is that something interesting is kind of like the object that's coming with the verb. So like I said earlier, don't stress the verb, stress what the verb is doing if you've got an object. So something interesting would kind of go together. I saw something funny. Alors moi j'ai vu quelque chose d'amusant. Yeah, you wouldn't say moi j'ai vu quelque chose d'amusant. I saw something funny, as opposed to something sad. By all means, oh moi j'ai lu quelque chose de triste, like something sad, but it's more common to sort of put the feeling across the whole adjective, across the whole of that object. So we've talked about adverbs. We've talked about verbs that you're going to stress if they're if the verb is on its own. We've talked about nouns that we're going to stress if the noun is after the verb. So what I thought we'd do is I'm going to use again the text that I gave some of you guys last week, which is for the which is from the Vie de Merde. So it's actually the same text that we've got in a previous Vie de Merde video. I will link that as well. And what I thought we could do is if I go through it and I read it for you and I show you what we wouldn't stress and what we would stress. Okay? So like I said, all of this is to enable you to get into the rhythm of what you're going to hear and at what speed so that you don't miss these little words because they're never as standard going to be stressed in certain places. So I will pop these underneath the ones we do. So again, they're taken from the marvellous Facebook page or website that I thoroughly encourage you to sign up to, which is called Vie de Merde. Okay, so